Never Hike Alone is not just the name of this episode's feature film, but also serves as an important reminder that one should not really conduct this strenuous yet enjoyable exercise alone. I mean, it's common sense. Being alone in the woods with no reception, no one to run to in case there's a wild animal like a bear or a wolf or anything dangerous. It would be common sense to go out with a group of friends, and you wouldn't stand a chance against someone like Jason Voorhees, a machete-wielding maniac who lives in Camp Crystal Lake. I mean, think about it. Unless you're in a group, you won't really survive a situation like that. The best that you can hope for is be the fastest one and run for the hills. And watch as he probably slaughters your friends. Unless you're someone like me, you'll probably be the one who gets sent to the chopping block. Anyway, on with the movie review. Never Hike Alone is a Friday the 13th fan film created by Wompstomp Films. It was released on October Friday the 13th in 2017 on YouTube and has since gained over 1 million views. We find ourselves following one Mr. Kyle MacLeod, played by Andrew Leety, an avid backcountry hiker who, while on a solo backpacking trip for some reason, discovers the long-lost remains of Camp Crystal Lake. Ignoring the campfire ghost stories from his childhood, Kyle's curious nature draws him in to see what is left of the camp, since it was closed after the infamous 1980 Friday the 13th murders. However, Kyle's innocent search of the camp turns deadly when he is attacked by Camp Crystal Lake's last remaining resident, Jason Voorhees. Stranded alone in the middle of the wilderness, with a legendary mass murderer on his heels, Kyle's survival skills will be put to the test like never before. Will he make it out of the woods alive, or become another victim of the cursed camp? My interest in this movie was basically piqued by a lot of people who were complaining on Facebook, especially in some of the horror groups, that they didn't care for the selection on their Netflix accounts. They didn't like the movies, or they've all seen them, whatever the case may be. So I remembered back in 2017 where for some reason everyone had some sort of horror fan-made film out, and I remember Never Hike Alone at the time. And then having hear such a big fuss about it, I decided to check it out, and my thoughts back then, 3 years ago, were that this is going to be probably a low-budget movie with very, very low effects and horrible acting, as is usually the case in the amateur production. I mean, people are trying, granted, but this movie surprised me in a way that it could be seen as a movie that was made by Paramount or which other big production company makes successful and huge blockbuster horror movies. So let's talk about what I enjoyed about this movie. Initially going in, I thought it was going to be a cheap found footage movie, and I was pleasantly surprised. This movie gave me a different perspective about what really happens at Camp Crystal Lake. I mean, what does Jason do when he survives an encounter, rises up from the lake, or whatever the case may be? It's not always fun at the lake. It must be boring to hang out there. What are you going to do tonight? I don't know. Hope for someone to kill? And then the movie surprises us and only brings along one character for Jason to stalk, harass, and pursue, which I think is brilliant. I mean, the idea itself could creep out a lot of people. Who's ever thought about being chased down or tracked down by Jason if they're in that situation? There's also a brief appearance by another character from the previous movies in this movie, and I think that will be the cherry on the cake for a lot of fans who might not have expected this particular person to appear in this movie. I'm not going to give out who it is. If you want to watch the movie, go to YouTube right now and basically check it out for yourself. Even though I enjoyed this movie, I can sympathize with other fans who might have not enjoyed it as much, and I think let's just look into that. Okay, so let's look at some of the possibilities why this film could possibly not be liked. Personally, I liked it a lot. I found it brilliant, I found it different, but I can understand why 849 people might have a problem with it. So the first problem could be a potential lack in stabbing and shagging, which doesn't really happen in this movie. If you see the Never Hike Alone poster for the first time, you would maybe expect to see a lot more gore and usual nudity, as is the case in the other movies. This is a totally different ball game, but if you've never heard of Never Hike Alone, this could be a problem for you if you go into it expecting certain things that were featured in the previous movies. Another possible critique of this movie could be the portrayal of Jason. Jason is played by the film's director, Vincent DiSante. And what I've noticed during the movie is Jason doesn't have a one-level portrayal. There's this up and down sequence with Jason. First he walks fast, then he walks slow. It's not really a stable movement of Jason. It didn't really bother me. I didn't care. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the portrayal. But some people might find problems with this. But again, it didn't bother me. But this could be a problem for diehard fans that either want their Jason to walk slow or fast or whatever the case may be. This could possibly be a problem for them. It's a small critique. It doesn't bother me, like I said, but it's just something that might bother some people. Guys, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you'd like to get in contact with us, our social media links are below. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we look forward to bringing you more scares. Thank you for listening to Creepcast. What happens when a group of wildlife volunteers are silently stalked by a pair of hungry carnivores? The hyenas might be laughing, but this was no joke. Find out what happened in the next terrifying episode of Creepcast.